You ever hear of Stardew Valley? Probably not. It's kind of a niche, unknown indie game. I fucking hate that shit. Now look, don't click off. It's supposed to be a slice of life, but it has all these almost survival game mechanics. I prefer things simple. I don't really want to craft or farm or dungeon crawl or mine or fucking come inside a bitch and get her pregnant or any of that shit. I don't think there's anything actually wrong with the game, it's just not my thing. I prefer Animal Crossing's simple but effective mechanics and gameplay loop, and I think it looks way better visually. I don't like these kind of realistic sprites. And that absolutely is important, by the way. Like, half the appeal of those games is just making your little area look nice. But none of that really matters. Animal Crossing isn't my favourite in the genre either. I don't like it because you can move around and talk to people and do shit, and it's a video game, and I hate video games. I'm retarded. Okay, Tomodachi Life. Tomodachi Life is also kind of a life sim game like Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing, but it's a bit different as you don't control any character really. You just kind of act as an omnipotent being and look over your little guys. It's not really like The Sims either, since in those games you at least have some control over your characters. You can like fuck with your guys and force them to do shit. You can set them on fire and stuff. In Tomodachi Life, your guys basically do their own thing and you just kind of give them advice. It's a real standout in the genre. It has its own issues, but it's extremely unique, and what it does right I love. It's better than the cozy farming slop that gets shut out each year by indie developers. I hate lazy, ungrateful indie developers. I'm just fucking around, but it is kind of sad how much derivative and uncreative stuff there is in the genre. Harvest Moon's been doing this shit since 1996, there has to be more ideas. Speaking of the genre, what the fuck is the genre? Farming sims are now kind of considered a genre themselves, but I don't know, that seems too niche to me. Also, Animal Crossing doesn't have farming, at least it didn't until the fucking new one. But it definitely feels like it's in the same category. So what genre is Animal Crossing? I was always under the impression it was a life sim, and I still do think this is kind of the best answer, but I want to do a little deeper dive. It's actually supposed to be a social sim, which coincidentally includes games like Persona. This includes most of the ones that were under life sim like The Sims, Animal Crossing and Harvest Moon, but I don't really think games like Persona count. So the way I see it, the genre is like a Venn diagram. So I mocked this up, kind of showing my rough thoughts. Games like Persona and Yiik aren't life sims because they have a defining endpoint. Although they technically do simulate life, it's only one guy's life in a story. All other games in the category can last as long as you want them to, and you can choose from multiple characters. And I couldn't think of any games that have both farming and social elements but don't also have life ones. I don't know, I just wanted to express this kind of wider category I had in my head. Really, it doesn't fucking matter, but I'm not calling that shit cozy sim games. Anyway, I'm talking about Tomodachi Life, except I'm fucking not doing that. I'm doing Tomodachi Collection first. It's on the DS. It's like the first entry in the series, I guess. But I don't know, that doesn't really feel right to me. I don't think enough really changes across entries to qualify it as another one. They're more like different versions of the same game, except Collection is shittier, but it's still, you know, an important entry point in the series, so I want to talk about it. First of all, yes, I'm using an emulator. I don't have a capture card and Tomodachi Collection was never localized, so I have to use the fan translation anyway. And I'm not gonna do some retarded bit where I'm like, I sure hope the Nintendo ninjas don't come after me. Like they fucking give a shit about my 3-view YouTube channel. I hate when people do jokes like that, acting like emulation is even a crime at all. Or even downloading games from like Vim's Lair or CD Romance, like there's any real life basis for that at all. At worst they go after the source, but they usually won't even do that. They did that shit with Vim's Lair like really recently, and it was cause people fucking talked about it too much. I still can't believe they got Vim. It was my go-to as well. I know I'm technically breaking my own rules by talking about it now, but I have like 1 subscriber, dude, who cares? Basically, you can do whatever the fuck you want and it doesn't matter. I'm evil and I steal the food off of indie developers' plates. I downloaded a copy of Persona 4 and I burned it onto a CD. I'm gonna replay that shit on the CRT I got from my attic. You start off in the Me Maker menu. I like the Tomodachi Life UI. I like the mix of pastel, yellow and oranges. The game's cover art is also nice. I prefer collections to lives. I love the salmon color. I like the more minimalistic Mii designs compared to Life. That game has these really fancy, high quality detailed renders. I have to make a character that looks like me first. I think that this captures my likeness pretty well. What? I'm a fine and upstanding Blasian gentleman. The rest of these options don't really matter. They let you choose your blood type, which I thought was kind of weird. You can only choose this in Collection and the Japanese version of Life, and was localized out in other versions. I looked into why, and it's because Japanese people see blood types kinda like how we see star signs. It's kind of interesting. I don't even know my own blood type. Now you can choose your Mii's voice, but because it's not localized, he just makes funny little Japanese noises. I like their funny little voices though, and it carries over pretty well over all of the regional versions. You can customize all of the voices how you want to make them high pitched and stuff. I was kinda curious where all the voices came from as well. Based on how it pronounces certain things, it's clearly some sort of TTS. This may sound like a pointless and autistic thing to care about, but I actually wasn't the only one who cares about this. Thanks to this GBA temp thread from Genius Philosophers, Leafy is here and X Dark Mario. They found the source of the TTS, and it's actually not very interesting. They're from Nuance, an AI solutions company. You probably know some of their voices. They have like the fucking MLG guy. The Japanese version's a bit different because the voices aren't located in the same location as they are in other versions. Presumably the Japanese voices are built in, since the voices were reused for both versions and are also used in this DS cookbook game. You like made pasta and shit, and there was this little chef guy who talked to you, but really it doesn't matter that much. Not to sound like an asshole or anything, but do you ever think how little time we have to spend in this beautiful world? I'm probably on the fucking second monitor right now. Man, fuck, whatever. Anyway, next you get to choose where your Mii stands on a scale of 5 attributes, which will give you one of 16 personality types. The personality types are divided into 4 groups: cool, dry, calm, and fun, with each of the groups having 4 subcategories. These groups affect how compatible Mii's are with each other. Anyway, I'm really cool. I got like the worst one. Dry seems like kind of an odd word. I'm sure the original word in Japanese doesn't exactly match any English word. Look, I'm not dry, alright? I'm wet. I'm like the video of the monkey pissing in his own mouth. I'm like that, okay? Anyway, after finishing the Mii, an apartment for him to live in shows up. This is where you can visit and interact with your Mii's. Giving myself a visit, apparently I'm lonely, just like my revolting chud incel life IRL. So I have to make myself a hot babe to oogle at. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Oh, I have to make her age. A gulp. I was just playing, don't worry fellas, she's 18 years of age. The ideal age for me to fuck and shove my penis inside of and cum. Look, okay, I'm sorry about the penis and cum stuff. I haven't been feeling myself lately. I think I've been possessed by some sort of ghoul. I need to get professional ghost behaviorist, the irate gamer, on the case.
Weird paranormal things happen where we had an entity kind of come in and wake us up in the middle of the night and mutter the words, "I can't breathe." Now what's weird about this is that the very next day, all over the news was George Floyd.
Now's a good time to go through the gameplay loop. This little symbol on the window of the apartment represents a Mii with a problem, such as wanting new clothes or food or whatever. Your Mii's just kind of walk around and do their own things, and you're like an empath or something, so you have to go around and help them with shit. The first problem you get is asking for food, which triggers the opening of the convenience store. You can buy food and sometimes drinks here. Going back and solving the Mii's problem by giving him food gives you money in return to buy more shit, and also increases the satisfaction level in the hunger meter of the Mii. Increasing the satisfaction meter can level up your Mii. When they level up, you can give them new rooms, songs, items, and other things. The hunger meter's just there for realism, I guess, and to stop you from repeatedly feeding a Mii to level them up quick. It's basically just about managing everyone's shit like a human ant farm or something. It's kinda weird, but something about it definitely clicks with me. Right now I want to talk some more about where the gameplay's idea even came from, because the game's development was pretty unique. The game was produced by this guy Yoshio Sakamoto. This guy's pretty big, you might have heard of him. He's had some pretty big roles in the development of most of the Metroid games. He's worked on WarioWare, Rhythm Heaven, Famicom Detective Club, the fucking Snoopy Game & Watch. The idea for Collection first came about a while before when he worked on another game, Totoko Hamtaro Tomodachi Daisakusen Dechu, roughly meaning Hamtaro, the Great Friendship Plan in English. I don't know anything about Hamtaro other than he's cute as shit, but the game basically worked as a little fortune-telling app. You could put your friend's information into these little hamsters, like the Miis, and see who would have good luck that day and who was compatible with each other and stuff like that. They thought it was a good idea that could catch on, but the game was mostly limited to Hamtaro fans. I haven't actually played the game myself, but I can't say it looks great. It doesn't really offer anything except for the fortune-telling thing. You can look at Hamtaro going around in his cage and he'll occasionally talk to you, but that's about it. It wasn't really much of a game in the first place, but Sakamoto and this guy Ryutaro Takahashi thought a game like this could appeal to Japanese horoscope bitches. Originally, it was going to be called Fortune Telling Notebook for Adult Women. The fortune telling part on its own wasn't really enough for a full game though, so they decided to add little characters you could make. This is actually how Miis first came about. It's kinda weird for a console that isn't really associated with them at all. And I guess there were other personal avatar ideas being thrown around here and there before Collection, but this is the first time it really got put into practice. Anyway, it was at that point that the guys realized that appealing specifically to adult women was, retarded. So they started shifting the project to something with a bit more universal appeal. The focus on the fortune-telling stuff shifted to just watching your little characters fuck around. You can still use it to make little versions of your real-life friends and obsessively stalk them. Or you could try and make yourself fuck and come inside of Chie Sadanaka from Persona 4, like me. That's more normal, that's the normal one. I'm not weird! Whatever, I do think the game is only the way it is. Because of the unique conditions it was developed under, it makes it at the very least a very interesting and unique game. This is pretty much the one piece of universal praise it seems to get, even from people who don't really like or understand the gameplay. And yes, I know this term is used to fucking death, but it is legitimately a very cozy game. Something about being a third-party observer, just looking over these little guys is very comforting to me. More than fucking farming. Look, I'm Irish, I don't know if you could tell. I have kind of a weird accent, it comes through on some words, but less on others. My granddad was a farmer in Meath. Smells like shit. There's fucking rust and shit everywhere. Yeah, maybe think about that next time, women, when you're playing Stardew Valley on your pastel pink Switch before posting on Tumblr. Except if you're like that and watching this video, in that case you can hit me up on my social media page, please. Alright, back to the game. These little signposts here are areas on the island that are under construction. In order to unlock more features, you have to add islanders and solve problems. I need more Miis to progress in the game, so I may as well add some. After adding all my favorite anime girls and Cory Delaminguez to the island, I just have to solve some of the Mii's problems. There are a bunch of different problems Mii's can ask you to do, other than just asking for shit like food and clothes. They can have other problems like asking for phrases to say when they feel certain emotions, and asking you to scratch their back, which has you play a little mini-game. Speaking of mini-games, these are a big part of Tomodachi life. They're the parts that require the most active engagement. Mii's will beckon for you to play with them and have a green icon on their window. You do their little game for a few seconds, and if you win you get items. They're decent little pace breakers from the normal gameplay loop, but I wish there were more. There's only a couple and you get very used to them after a while. Okay, there's some new stores opening, fellas. The clothes store and the interior store let you give clothes to your Mii and customize their apartments. The apartments are the most expensive things you can buy. Finally, my guy can get out of my psychopath isolation room and into a respectable studio apartment. You can get a bunch of unique rooms. You can let your Mii go to fucking Arabia. You could go around on camels. Get your Mii legs blown off by the Mii Taliban. Anyway, the apartments are kinda cool. You can spy on your Miis and they'll invite friends over and play games and stuff if you give them the level up items. So after a while it'll feel real lively. Okay, I want to talk a bit about the title screen here. I really like it. The sounds of the beach and the birds in the air with panning shots of the island is great. It gives the island a sort of calming atmosphere. I also like that you can see the window icons from the screen. That way you can kind of just check in and see what kind of problems your Miis have before you decide to start playing. I like how the island looks in general. All the little models for the buildings look nice. They all have their own kind of personality. I like that they put a little bit of extra effort into making the island feel real. While you're just overlooking the island, clouds will fly overhead and water flows at the shore. The skyline will change based on the time of day, and sometimes things like birds or a plane will fly overhead. They don't really matter that much, but I like little details like these. One of the things I like the most about life is just watching these walk around in different locations in the island. The only place this happens in Collection is at the fountain. You can occasionally see Miis walking around here, and there's also events that sometimes occur. Miis can take English lessons, and also do this thing called Street Live where some Miis will perform music. This has some really nice remixes of the game's soundtrack. An interesting little thing I found out while reading this interview with the developers is that the guy who composed the game, Daisuke Shiba, originally had the OST be more beautiful, but was asked to change it to fit more with the game's mood. And the Street Live events have more of what he described as beautiful music, which means these little songs could have been like the first draft for the game's soundtrack. It's cool to see stuff like that, though I think where the game ended up with the soundtrack is more fitting. Some of the tracks are a bit dramatic for a game like this. The fountain also has a market in the morning and allows you to collect donations from the citizens once a day so you don't run out of money. I guess I should talk about all the other buildings now. The next one is the rankings board. This ranks all your Miis in a bunch of different categories. There's obvious examples like who is the most popular, but also ones like ranking different Miis by their fortune that day, which is one of the features carried over from the development. Put a surprising amount of detail into it, which I like. Each ranking has their own theme. I like this shitty little song that plays when you're just looking at the rankings board with the light flickering and stuff. The song kind of even uses sound effects which sound like a light bulb flickering. It's great. It's like a Mori. Does the line in that game even flicker? I don't even remember. Look, I know there's a light bulb, I remember that part. It's next to the tissues for coming into, the laptop for pornography, and the cat for coming inside of. Is that actually what those tissues are for? I know in the game it was some gay line like wiping away your sorrows, but it definitely looks at first glance like they're for coming into. Like the implication there is that he's beating all. Since I'm a serious and professional YouTube creator, I looked into it for at least like 5 minutes and found out that was what they were for in the webcomic, but they were pussies and removed it. I need to be able to beat off in the sequel. Maybe that would make it an actually good game. The webcomics were alright though. I don't know what the fucking context behind them or anything like that was. Some of them were pretty funny, but I don't know if they were meant to be taken seriously or not. I like that they're like animated with the light bulb flickering and stuff. Back to Tomodachi Collection. 2 of the ranking boards are based on how compatible characters are. This isn't based on the relationships in game, instead it's based on the compatibility tester. Another fortune telling thing. This uses Mii's info to calculate compatibility. It's pretty simple, measuring relationships in percentage, but it has different little animations for the ranges. The last of the fortune telling features is next to it in this little tent. It decides each character's career, also based on the Mii's details. It's a pretty simple premise, but there are like dozens and dozens of different jobs you can get. It's not really a very important feature, but it gives it a bit of novelty. The jobs are also divided by gender. That's right, no fucking hole is gonna change my gas. Wipe the cum out of my rear exhaust. It's from when I fuck my car. I'm saying I have sex with my car. Are you listening? The last of the mini-game buildings, as I'll call them, is this one, the question hall. In the building, you shockingly ask questions. Here you can write down and vote between two specific options, or you can use these preset questions to basically play Mad Libs with, and have Mies decide whether or not they agree with it. The voting one is pretty simple, but it's a great idea and one of the strongest mini-games. It's supposed to be for like making decisions. So you can choose to like dump all of your grandmother's inheritance money on Pepe Groiper coin. There's obviously one question you have to ask in this scenario. I of course have no stake in this race because I'm gay and I like guys, but the Mies probably can't give an accurate answer either. There's no tits or ass anywhere on this thing. Imagine having to fuck this. I don't know, it has eyelashes, so there's probably at least several thousand people who do want to. I don't think I went over mean news yet, so I'll do that. It basically gives you announcements about your island, like when new buildings are unlocked or upgraded. There's also reports which take place every morning and evening, which are basically just jokes. It also reminds you literally every time you quit without saving. Even if you saved like 1 second ago, it'll still play the announcement when you restart the game. It may not sound that bad, but it's pretty annoying. Literally all of the comments on the news theme OST are about this. Speaking of building upgrades, the apartment building will get upgraded in intervals as you add islanders. Each remodeling has a different design, with up to a maximum of 100 islanders on your island, which is pretty fair. I've never used up all the slots in any of my playthroughs. Okay, last building is a pawn shop where you can sell items you get from playing games with your Mies. The selections of buildings in this game definitely feels limited. Having so many of them being dedicated to these kind of uninteresting gimmicks is sort of disappointing. I like that each one of these buildings has their own feel to them, but they definitely could realistically all just be combined into one building or be a part of another. Outside of all the buildings though, Mies can also interact with you and each other in the apartment building. This is the big selling point. It's in the title, Friend Collection, and that's what it is, a collection of my real life friends in the real world. Alongside the other problems that I discussed, Mies will also occasionally ask for your permission to make friends because they're little cuckolds. From there, Mies relationships will increase or deteriorate. You can check the status of a Mies relationship in the top screen of their apartment. If a Mies relationship with a friend is low, then they could get into a fight. Steam comes out of their ears and they start stomping around and shit. You have to feed them food and buy them clothes until they get their shit together and go try and make up. Their apology will be either accepted or rejected. If it's accepted, it'll all be fine and they'll go back to being friends. But if they get rejected, they start taking Xanax. Just kidding, you actually give them like 3 fucking pieces of candy and they're fine. They don't fucking care. The next thing that can happen is romance, and there's even a new icon on the window of the apartments. Mies can date each other if you give them your permission, which is like actually being a cuckold. Romance options are pretty rare. They usually won't happen for a few days or even weeks IRL, so it makes sense the credits in each game are locked behind romance options. When they ask, you can tell them how to act during their confession. Where to go, what to wear, what times they should stay in their room and play Switch with the volume turned up. You know, stuff like that. Whether they're accepted or rejected is based on how close their relationship is. In Collection, all this does is open a ranking board. A girl popularity board is opened if it's a girl being confessed to, and a boy one for vice versa, as well as allowing Mies to get married. This also happens randomly when 2 Mies in a relationship are close. If a Mies relationship with his girlfriend is low because he's beating her or whatever, they can decide they want to break up. If this happens, you can accept it or try and resolve it. In Collection, if they break up, they can never get back together again. If it's going good, they'll decide to get married. The way marriage works in Collection is very different from how it does in life. The 2 Mies in a relationship will each have a heart on their door, and they'll just tell you that they've already gotten married. You can't affect this in any way. It's good they're showing some initiative, I guess. After this, they'll get married and a credit sequence will roll with pictures of the couple. After that, they go on a honeymoon, which is identical to the travel ticket item. It's sort of an anti-climax. You'd think they'd at least unlock a ranking board or something. There's no tense proposal event or anything like that, and the Mies being married doesn't do anything other than changing their status. It's kind of lame. I want more interesting shit to look at, or at least something that's worth waiting potential weeks for. My overall thoughts on the game were still fairly positive though. Even coming from Life, which is basically a direct upgrade, it still has some merits in its own right. The soundtrack being arguably better is a big one. I think its simplicity can be pretty charming in a lot of ways, even though it definitely doesn't help when the game's biggest problem is its lack of lasting novelty, but I'll get more into all of that later. It's absolutely a worse game, but it's still alright. If you've only played Life, I'd give this a try. Okay, I've covered all that I wanted to go over about Collection. This video will probably be split into 2 parts, one for Collection and one for Life, then combined together into one big video with maybe like an epilogue or something added on. I'm actually pretty happy with how it's turning out, and I still have a lot of shit I want to talk about, so I'll see you fellas in a few months or something. Oh yeah, I've always wanted to do this shit. It's like treating my first medical patient as a doctor, except as a homo making the 3rd best cat sex video essay. Okay, whatever. Continued in part 2.